how did they get there, and how do I get the staircase to go up to that level? And there is no magic sauce to it. There's hard work, there's dreaming, there's never forgetting where you want to be, and always setting goals higher, because when you've reached that first goal, you need to have other goals. And so I just, I kept throwing it all back in and just kept going.
Dave Kindig used to be a titan of MotorTrend. Millions of viewers were glued to their screens every week to watch him turn rusty relics into rolling masterpieces. He was hailed as one of America's modern-day masters of the custom car world. Then, everything changed. In 2022, a group of over 30 wealthy clients banded together to take him to court. They accused Kindig-It Design of deception, of taking their money and failing to deliver. In early 2025, his hit TV show was canceled without warning. Online, fans started questioning his health. From the pinnacle of fame to a legal quagmire in just a few short years. Was this the collapse of an empire, or just a collision between passion and the harsh realities of business? Today, we're peeling back the layers of this story. But before we get to the tragedy, let's go back to where it all began. The kid who drew bugs and dreamed on four wheels. Dave Kindig grew up in Utah in the 1970s. From a young age, he had a special passion for drawing. It started with insects, rendered with meticulous detail. But Kindig quickly moved on to the mesmerizing curves of classic cars. Soon, every piece of paper in his house was covered in hot rods, signaling a future welded to the world of four wheels. As a young man, Dave took a job at a company called High Performance Coating. It was his first chance to get his hands on the things he'd only ever drawn on paper. He learned to paint, to perfect a finish, and to understand metal as if it were a living thing. But Dave didn't want to work for someone else forever. In 1991, he made a move many would call reckless. He cashed out his entire retirement fund and opened a small shop. It was just 4,500 square feet, and the rent payment nearly wiped him out. That was the beginning of Kindig-It Design. The early years were tough. Dave did almost everything himself. Clients came and went. Some months, the utility bills arrived before the paychecks. But there was one thing Dave refused to compromise on: quality. Every car that left his shop had to meet the impossibly high standard he set for himself. Word of the craftsman in Utah began to spread. Customers from other states started calling. A few years later, the 4,500 square foot shop felt impossibly small. Dave moved into a new 27,000 square foot facility, hired more builders, and started taking on bigger projects. Behind that growth was a woman few people talk about. Charity, Dave's wife, isn't just his life partner. She manages most of the company's logistics and operations. In Utah's custom car scene, there's a running joke. The only person Dave Kindig needs permission from before taking on $1 million project isn't his accountant, it's Charity. Dave's son, Drew, grew up in the shop. He watched his father weld, grind, and paint from the time he was a toddler. When he was old enough, Drew joined the company. Father and son started working side by side. There was something else that set Kindig-It apart. On Sundays, the shop doors were always locked. Dave is a devout Mormon. For him, Sunday is a day for family and faith, not for work. When TV producers later offered to pay a premium to film on weekends, Dave flatly refused. No exceptions. With a solid foundation of skill, family, and faith, Dave was about to enter a new era. One that would take him from an unknown builder in Utah to a household name on national television. When the Hollywood spotlight hit the shop, in the early 2000s, producers at Velocity, the network that would later become MotorTrend, were scouting for a new face for their custom car programming. The market already had Counting Cars, Fast and Loud, and Gas Monkey Garage. They needed something different. Dave Kindig's name came up. His team sent the network a sizzle reel showing how they worked. There was no fancy production, just Dave, his crew, and the cars. The executives at Velocity watched it and were sold. In 2014, Bitchin' Rides officially hit the airwaves. Before signing, Dave made a demand few TV personalities would dare to make. He insisted it be written into his contract that the cars featured on the show were not props. They had to be real cars for real clients, and no project would ever be rushed just to meet a broadcast schedule. The network agreed. The show was an instant hit. Viewers loved the way Dave talked with his crew. They loved the hand-drawn sketches he still did for every project, just like the kid who used to draw on scrap paper. They loved the obsessive attention to detail, from the custom door handles to the stitching on the leather seats. In 2016, Kindig-It brought a 1936 Packard named The Whisper to the Detroit Autorama. The project had taken over 3 years. Every curve of its body was shaped by hand. The judges awarded The Whisper the Riddler Award, the most prestigious prize in the American custom car world. The moment Dave walked on stage to accept it, thousands of people in the hall rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Around the same time, Dave began a very different project. This one wasn't for a client. It was for himself. Inspired by a 1956 Ford F-100, he designed a completely new vehicle from the ground up and named it the CF-1 for Copper F-100. Every single component was created from scratch by him and his team. The CF-1 quickly became a legend. Word in the collector community is that one collector offered nearly $3 million for it. Dave turned him down. His response became gospel in the custom car world. This isn't just a car, it's a legacy. After the CF-1, Dave and his team followed up with the CF-2, another ground-up concept design. Meanwhile, the client list at Kindig-It grew longer and longer. Some of the biggest names in American entertainment and sports commissioned cars from Dave's shop. But Kindig-It had an ironclad rule: never reveal a client's name. Even when the press asked, the answer was always no. It all looked like a dream come true. A hit show, prestigious awards, A-list clients, a solid family, and a shop producing cars admired around the world. But fame brings with it challenges Dave had never faced before. And one of them was about to drag him into a courtroom for the first time in his life. Defending the legacy. In 2014, the same year his show premiered, Dave Kindig filed a lawsuit in the Federal District Court of Utah. The defendant was Creative Controls, Inc., a company based in Michigan. The allegation was clear. Kindig-It Design claimed that Creative Controls had illegally copied their copyrighted designs and products, including images taken directly from the Kindig-It website. In the custom car industry, having a design stolen isn't just about money. It's a matter of honor. Every unique line, every special mechanism a shop develops is the result of thousands of hours of trial and error. For someone to just take that work and use it without permission was an act Dave couldn't ignore. The defendant immediately fired back, filing a motion to dismiss the case. Their main argument was that a Utah court had no jurisdiction, as Creative Controls had no significant business operations in the state. Dave's legal team presented 3 points. First, the Creative Controls website allowed customers in Utah to place orders. Second, the company had shipped a custom handbrake to Kindig-It in Utah. Third, there had been at least one sale made through their website to a customer in Utah. The legal battle over jurisdiction dragged into early 2016. The court issued a mixed ruling, siding partially with Dave and partially with the defendant. The judge found there were sufficient grounds to hear the copyright claims, but not the patent infringement claims. The lawsuit continued through 2017. Then, in July of that year, both parties jointly filed to dismiss the case with prejudice. This meant the case was permanently closed, and neither party could sue the other again on the same grounds. The terms of the settlement were never made public. For Dave, this wasn't a loss. It was a message. In an industry where creativity can be copied overnight, he showed he was willing to go to the mat to protect what his shop had built. The lawsuit was over. The show was still on the air. Clients were still lining up. On the surface, Kindig-It was in its golden age. But behind the spotlight, the first cracks were beginning to show. The first cracks behind the curtain. The more famous he became, the longer the wait list at Kindig-It grew. Some clients put down a deposit and waited over 3 years just for their turn to begin. In the world of high-end car collecting, waiting isn't unusual. But at Kindig-It, the wait times were stretching far beyond what was initially promised. The team in the shop felt the pressure too. Each episode of Bitchin' Rides required a significant amount of filming. Cameras were in the shop for hours every day. At the same time, the number of orders was exploding as Dave's name became known in every corner of the country. On online car forums, a few comments started to pop up. Someone would post that they had been waiting too long. Another would mention that their messages asking for a progress update weren't being answered as quickly as they used to be. At the time, these comments were few and far between and didn't attract much attention. On the show, astute viewers noticed something else. Dave looked thinner. In some episodes, he appeared less frequently, letting other members of his team lead more segments. In fan groups on Facebook, questions began to surface. Some worriedly asked if Dave was okay. Others speculated about his health. To this day, Dave and his family have never publicly confirmed any serious health issues, and it remains mostly in the realm of rumor. In the television market, pressure was mounting from other directions. Competing shows like Counting Cars with Danny Coker and Fast and Loud with Richard Rawlings were in a direct ratings battle. Every network was trying to find something new to keep viewers hooked. Even the philosophy that was once Kindig-It's pride started creating its own strain. Dave was famous for his lifetime warranty on his builds, a rare promise in the industry. But as the number of projects grew, that promise meant the team had to juggle completing new builds while also being ready to service or repair old ones at a moment's notice. Then, the pandemic hit. In 2020, global supply chains were thrown into chaos. Auto parts, especially rare vintage components, became incredibly difficult to find. Parts that once took weeks to order now took months. Some shipments were stuck in ports, with no end in sight. For a shop trying to complete multiple million-dollar projects simultaneously, this was a massive blow. Some clients were understanding, others were not. And among those who were not, a group was about to pull Kindig-It into the biggest legal battle in the company's history. The storm named the 1974 Dodge Charger. The story began in 2019. A group of over 30 chiropractors and healthcare professionals from across the United States pooled their money for a special project. They wanted Kindig-It Design to restore and customize a 1974 Dodge Charger. The two parties agreed on a total project cost of $670,000. By early 2020, the clients had transferred over $230,000 in deposits and initial labor costs. According to the original plan, it was meant to be a long-term build, but one with a clear roadmap. Things did not go according to plan. By 2021, the clients were getting worried. They reached out for progress updates. According to allegations made later in court filings, the answers they received were often vague, or there was no answer at all. By mid-2021, some members of the group started talking to lawyers. Before heading to court, the parties attempted to resolve the dispute through mediation. The sessions took place but failed. The clients wanted their money back or a completed car. Kindig-It did not offer a solution the clients found acceptable. In 2022, the lawsuit was officially filed. The complaint accused Kindig-It Design of fraud and breach of contract. According to the plaintiffs, by the time they filed suit, the only thing they had received was a disassembled chassis. The drivetrain wasn't installed, the interior hadn't been touched, and the functional components were not finished. The chiropractor's lawyer presented photos and invoices to the court. They argued that compared to the $230,000 plus that had been paid, the amount of work actually completed was minimal. Kindig-It Design offered a rebuttal. They argued that the project was never abandoned. They pointed to the pandemic and the resulting supply chain issues that had delayed nearly every restoration project in the country. They cited their reputation and a long list of successful past builds as evidence that the delays were not intentional. As the case made its way to the press and social media, other former clients began to speak up. One man said he had sent his Camaro to Kindig-It over 3 years prior, only for the project to stall in the bodywork phase. Others described similar experiences, including difficulty getting in touch with the shop and receiving clear answers on their project status. On Reddit and in classic car Facebook groups, threads about Kindig-It became more frequent. Some people still defended Dave, arguing that a shop producing world-class cars needs time, and that the pandemic was a legitimate reason for delays. Others were harsher. They questioned whether TV fame had caused Kindig-It to take on far more work than it could realistically handle. As of 2025, the lawsuit is still in the discovery phase. Both sides are exchanging documents and taking depositions. The trial is scheduled to begin in early 2026, unless a settlement is reached first. And while that legal storm was still brewing, another blow landed from a direction few expected. The lights go out, but the forge stays lit. In early 2025, a short announcement appeared in media outlets covering the MotorTrend network. Bitchin' Rides would not be returning. The decision wasn't explained in detail. News reports cited increasingly stiff competition from similar shows and rising production costs. A custom car show requires long filming hours, a large technical crew, and frequent travel to car shows across the country. When budgets get tight, it's the kind of content that often gets cut. Dave confirmed the news on Instagram with an emotional post. He thanked the fans for being part of the journey for over a decade. He said that even though the show was over, his passion for creating cars would never change. Thousands of comments poured in. Most were fond farewells. Some asked about the future. A few expressed disappointment with MotorTrend. During the same period, several other car shows on the network also came to an end. Vegas Rat Rods and Fast and Loud were both wrapped up. Some fans began to talk about a so-called MotorTrend curse. The reality was simpler. The television landscape was changing fast, audiences were moving to YouTube and streaming platforms, and high-cost shows were becoming a risky bet for traditional cable channels. For Dave, losing the show didn't mean losing everything. After the cameras were gone, the shop stayed open. The crew kept working. Projects were still getting done. In 2025, Dave appeared at the MasterTech Expo, a major event for builders and shop owners. He shared his experience, met with old friends in the industry, and showed he was still right where he'd been since 1991, in a garage, building cars. His life outside of work hasn't changed much. On the weekends, he and Charity can often be found on the golf course. It's their way of slowing things down. In the shop, Drew continues to work alongside his dad. The old habits remain. On Sundays, the shop doors are still locked. No matter how much pressure is hanging over them, that day is still reserved for family and faith. Dave also participates in community events, showing up at fundraisers in the classic car world. He doesn't talk about it much in the media. That's not his style. The lawsuit with the chiropractors still looms. 2026 will be a decisive year if it goes to trial. But inside the shop in Utah, things are running the way Dave always ran them. One car is taken apart, another is put together. A sketch on paper, the sound of a grinder, the ring of hammered metal. The story of Dave Kindig isn't a simple story of success to failure, nor is it the story of a flawless hero. It's something much more real than both. It's the story of a boy who started by drawing bugs on paper, of a craftsman who opened a shop with his retirement money and 4,500 square feet, of a man who turned down $3 million for a car because it meant more than money, of a business owner facing a lawsuit from over 30 of his own clients, of a husband and a father who still locks his shop doors every single Sunday. Success always comes with an unexpected price. Television brought fame, but also immense pressure. Clients arrived faster than the work could be done. A promise of quality can become a burden when a business scales beyond its control. Dave Kindig isn't done building. The quote he put on his shop wall years ago is still there. It's not just a car, it's a legacy. So, what do you think of this story? Is this a series of misunderstandings during a difficult time for the industry, or is it a sign of deeper problems inside Kindig-It? Drop a comment below with your take. If you want to hear more true stories from behind the curtain of other famous custom car builders, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.